Hi all, and welcome back to Amelia Finance. I'm a product and product manager with over 10 years of experience, and I love sharing my background and my experience with other people that are interested in the field. With that, I want to go over, I have 3 new updates on the new PMP 2022 test, and those updates are making sure that you're thinking like a project manager during the test, knowing your agile terms and concepts, and time management. Those are the 3 critical things I'm seeing as themes about when you take the test, what you should be focusing on. So, thinking like a project manager. First off, how are you managing the project? You should know really clearly what's the difference between a product manager, a project manager, a scrum master, a stakeholder, because you are the project manager. And what does that mean? It means you're managing the backlog, you're managing the timeline, you know what's upcoming, you're trying to make sure you've captured all the issues and risks, you know who your stakeholders are and the RACI where you've categorized them. And so making sure that you're really clear on what do you do as a project manager to make sure that your project that has a clear end date is successful. Next, you want to make sure that you are helping your team. How are you coaching and facilitating junior team members? Perhaps you have a junior PM on a side project, making sure you're encouraging them and stepping in and supporting them where they need to, so that way they can make sure that they're making progress on their project. How can you open up doors and opportunities for someone that has an interest in something else that's maybe not so connected to your project, but is really valuable for them in their personal life? So making sure that you're finding ways for them to be excited about the work that they're doing. Next is managing. So how do you ask management what they're needing, making sure that you're not raising risks incorrectly, making sure you're flagging things well in advance, and then also recognizing management expects you to go make good decisions with a strong POV, point of view, that you can back up, that you have a good reasoning why you're doing things in a particular sequence or at a particular time, and then they expect you to execute. So go ahead and make sure that you're excited about what you're doing, you have things documented, you have them stored in a location that if needed, someone can go and access very easily, but for the most part, you want to make sure that you're running the show and you are just leading your team to success. And then finally, for thinking like a project management, knowing your role. So recognizing you can't fire people, you can't hire people. Maybe you can put in someone's resume and say, I've worked with this person in the past, they were really great, look into hiring them if there's a good space for them. You likely won't be able to replace anyone in your role, so how do you go about facilitating a good team dynamic and making sure people are excited to come to work, are doing the right work, and what you can do to help and elevate team members that are struggling or are having challenges, right? Everyone's going through different things, and so what can you do to make sure that you're listening to your team and helping them be their best person at work? Secondly, on the test, on the PMP test, is making sure you know your agile terms. So what are the common phrases in project management that you should be familiar with? Project kickoff, timeline, status reports, RACI. What are best practices? Making sure that you're a really good just project manager and you understand those core concepts. So whether that be you don't have to go and memorize every single one of them, but if you're a project manager currently on a project, you should be familiar with many of these terms or have a really clear understanding of what's the difference between a timeline or a work back or an issue or a risk. And so making sure that you're comfortable on that is going to help you a lot with the test. Next, know what the best practices are. The test focuses a lot on agile best practices. So what is a daily stand-up? What is a retrospective? What are the sprint planning? What's a demo? So being really familiar with that, and I've actually created a video that's for product managers, but a lot of those product and project managers, especially with agile, very similar. So I recommend you go taking a look at that. Then voting. This is an interesting one that I think isn't really focused on as much as it should be, but how do you gain consensus with your team? How do you get your team excited to be part of your team, making sure that they're continuing to be interested to work with you? Maybe you want to play planning poker, maybe you're familiar with other concepts of how to gain some consensus, but really talk through like listen to your team, actively listen so that way they can share, so that way when you make decisions or you create working norms, that they're heard and they're listened to and they appreciate what you're bringing to the table and how you're managing the project. And then thirdly and finally on the test, time management. This is really critical, but if you're comfortable and you know the project best practices, you know the agile phrases, you should be able to move pretty quickly through the test. But really still keep an eye on the timer. Try to do a 1 minute per question so that way you have time to go back and review the questions you flagged, and you can just like keep breathing during that time, right? Like you really want to make sure that you're giving yourself enough time to do well on the test and feel comfortable and confident. And then most importantly, I think you can start this, you can end it, is mindset. What is your mindset going on the test? Are you confident? Have you done your mental exercises knowing that you've done the best you could? You've tried your best, you've studied, you've done those things, and you're positive, you're excited, you feel like you've learned a lot, and focus on really what you bring to the table, right? Like this test doesn't define you, and so just remember that no matter what happens, you're still you at the end of the day. And by going through this process of studying, whether or not you pass or don't pass, you still have learned a lot and you're still trying to improve, which is the sign of a good project manager in general. With that, thanks for watching Amelia Finance. Like, follow, ask questions. Let me know if there's anything else from the new PMP test that you would like to learn about or that you've seen on the test if you've taken it and passed, or even if you haven't taken it and you would like to focus more on that. With that, thanks all. Like, follow, ask questions. Thank you.